Mr. Hetzke,
Here.
Bastian,
Here.
Knauer,
Here.
Tidings,
Here.
Nursinger,
Here.
Valentine,
Here.
Sangster,
Here.
O'Connor,
Here.
and Weissar.
Here. No, we have a future board member. That's right.
Go ahead.
As you all know,
As you all see.
we are down to 5-member board officially now. And for a while, we had 4 members who were out of town. So
But we're all here now.
we welcome back Jim Burton, who is official when? Do you know?
March 2nd? Yeah, I think next
March
Wednesday be official, so.
He's volunteering his services this evening.
We appreciate your service to the town. Welcome back. It's great to have you back.
Good to be back. And Terry's back.
Perfect. Even better. That's fantastic. All right, I think we have minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, back to January 10th. We're time traveling today. Oh, way back.
14.
14th, wrong date. Wow, I went too far. Sorry. January 14th minutes. Apologies, everybody. They're included in the drop. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, modifications for it? If not, board can take a vote on it.
Make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Terry and Bob. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion by Tidings, seconded by Knauer.
3.
Hetzke,
I'll abstain. I watched it, but I'll still abstain since we have enough of a quorum of people who are here.
Bastian,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Whoops. All right. Onto the agenda, we have 2 tabled applications. The first one is back to Windsor Ridge. It's been tabled for quite some time as the applicants have been working to review the site plans, revise the site plans based on all the comments that were provided from the board, other agencies, our staff. We now have plans that show 1 entrance off of 5 Mile Line Road as opposed to the 2 that was originally proposed. Still have 86 lots on the plan, so that number hasn't changed. You can tell that some of the inner workings have been adjusted with the road layout where the cul-de-sac is. It's just straightened out a little bit more. Let's see where else I'm going with this. So we took all these plans, we've done a PRC memo that was generated on February 12th. That was provided in the drop as well for everyone's consideration and review going into tonight. Staff's concerns. A lot of that just is still involving a lot of technical details we're still working through.
The review.
Yeah, we're still working through some of the drainage issues as well as the proposed conservation easement areas, and that could be something the board might want to talk about this evening. Just see where we are with who's in favor of conservation easements and where they're used on the properties as proposed. Can also talk about the landscaping and sidewalk layouts and a couple town board waivers that they're going to need through this process that they're going to have to request. Just other updates that we got were a long form EAF that was provided. We have, as we know, in October there were revised traffic queuing numbers that were provided from their traffic analysis to update which from the spring ones they took. Remember that Easter time one that they had done, and we had questions about the accuracy of that. Well, they went back in October and did more queuing of the intersection. That has been available to us, but we have that. Monroe County provided a letter from the DOT, basically stating that they don't have any major concerns with this application for 86 homes on that road. That really, again, they're basically saying this is an acceptable application for that road there. What else do I got? Bruce is in the process, our town landscape consultant. He's in the process of reviewing the landscaping plans He was on vacation during most of January, so he's just playing catch up. He has those plans, and we'll be generating a memo for the board when he gets a chance to finish up his review. And the other item that we as staff were just talking about this week, last week, was reaching out to the school district again to get their formal opinion in writing. We've had some discussions verbally with them. Originally, they had some concerns. We have a letter in the project saying we have some concerns about this many number of homes. However, since then, through our verbal discussions, they've looked at their numbers and they said they can accommodate the 86 homes for the schools and the existing infrastructure they have now. We don't have anything in writing yet, but we want to reach out to them to get something in writing for that, for the board to review at a later date. Mark, did I miss anything?
I think as the board gets into looking or discussing the application, we can weave in the items that we need to go to the town board as a waiver from the design criteria. Many of them are green infrastructure, stormwater related. Those are things that we updated our code last year. This year we're in the process, or we'll be in the process of looking at updating our town design criteria. In many locations we're in conflict with what the DEC wants on trying to get recharge and infiltration back into the groundwater.
How will that manifest itself into a real project? Will the town's codes prevail, or will the DEC
They have
to take precedent in?
There's a minimum the applicant needs to meet. It's called a runoff reduction volume. So they look at, again, technical term, the water quality volume, basically the amount of water you have to treat on the site. So it used to be called the first flush. Small storm events that when you're washing off silt debris off the site, you want to capture that and treat that for water quality. It used to be called the first flush, now it's the water quality volume. Of that, there's this runoff reduction volume that they have to collect that and then recharge a certain percentage of that back into the ground. It's based on the soil types that are out there, and there's a minimum they need to meet. So that's their goal is to meet that minimum. Part of that you can get through the conservation easements, you get through the infiltration portion of it, you get credits for trees that are planted, rain gardens. There's a number of things that you can do to recharge it back into the ground. Disconnection of downspouts. So in some areas our code is in conflict with their standards. Currently our code says that you have to have all downspout conductors go into the ground. In certain areas, and depending on soil conditions, many people have houses that water just goes to splash block, it percolates in as long as you have sufficient swales between the houses and the ways to handle it. It's acceptable in that area. In this application, they're proposing the majority of the site to go to splash block, except for those homes on the eastern end, as Doug is highlighting. Those neighbors, we had some specific concerns about drainage, stormwater in that area. So on that end, they're proposing to connect those in. Those would get collected in. All homes would be connected in through sump pumps. That's kind of the nuisance water. If you happen to be on a spring or something like that, sump pump could run even when it's not raining. And those are more the nuisance complaints we get called about. If it rains, most people are understanding that they may have puddling or temporary water after a rain event, but when sump pumps run abnormally, that runs to more of an issue. So that's some of the stuff that as we get into the waivers, our code contradicts with that. And I guess if we're already talking about it, I can kind of run through the four that I'm aware of. Sure. Obviously, the first is the downspouts to splash block. Disconnecting the downspouts of the house, letting them run out to the yard and then percolate in.
That's something that, I don't know if anybody here is super excited about that, but do we have any say over that?
These are all things that they're working on to meet that minimum requirement. We did it at Caroline Court. I haven't heard any major issue, concern with that yet. And I know we did it at Sparrow Point. So those are two recent subdivisions that we've kind of did as a pilot, first out of the box. I haven't heard any yelling and screaming from neighbors on it. I know my house goes to splash block. They run out, and I think as long as you have defined swales between the homes, at least it's got somewhere to go, and it's not just puddling in your backyard. It goes to the swale, and then, a minor storm event, it just perks into the ground. Major storm event, you may see it, run off to the gutter at the street. I think as long as you have the relief
You gotta make sure it's well
area for it.
drained away from the foundation too, right?
Yep, and our code requires minimum 2% for, all swales between lots. The second item,
Seems like we're moving back toward the 1800s.
that's the way that's new regulations going, is
I know.
rain barrels and cisterns and, all those things that,
Government in its infinite wisdom.
well, we went from basically everybody handled their own stormwater on their lot to let's pipe it, take it down the end of the street and treat it in the pond at the end of the street. I think we're figuring out that, while that can handle quantity, one, the groundwater is not being recharged, so we're losing the groundwater water table. And secondly, treating it all at the end of the street isn't as effective as percolating it in the ground. So we can kind of see that things are coming back around on that. So that's item number one. Item number two is the length of swale in the backyards between catch basin inlets. Our code says it has to be every 3 lots or every 400 feet. Since these are smaller lots, for the most part, they're meeting the 400 feet standard, but they're exceeding the
4
3
lots.
lot, could be 4 lots or 5 lots in some aspects. But it's, roughly 400 feet or less between the catch basin inlets, but it's exceeding our standard says 3 or 400 feet, whichever is less. So that's the other waiver they're asking for. Our code also, and as a new part of our code, was 100 feet to the high water line from a pond, from a structure. They're showing all of their building paths to be outside of that area. The only caveat they brought in is that obviously that's a generic box. If somebody comes in with a slightly different house on that site, and it's slightly less than that, is there any wiggle room in that, obviously they just show a square on there, and once people come in with a house and want a side load or something else, that may modify slightly. And then the fourth one is the sidewalk partial waiver request. So our code says full
So
compliance,
they just want to put it on one side
Atlantic
of the street.
5 mile, and then all sides internally. They're proposing all frontages and then one side internally.
Okay.
So I don't know what the board's thought is about any or all of those. If you're supportive, do we want to send a letter to the town board? These are, obviously the sidewalk waiver always goes to the town board. I guess that's the first question, is this board supportive of the sidewalk waiver that's being requested?
Yeah, I think on a subdivision like this, one side of the street is fine. It's nice to have sidewalks internally, but 2 sides of the street is
It's kind of a busy thoroughfare.
it's kind of
And that also goes into the stormwater calcs as well, as if you can minimize road width, if you can minimize impervious surface areas, you can minimize sidewalks, so compliance with the policy, trying to find people an accessible path, but limiting it where it's not needed, and so kind of striking the balance with that. So how's the rest of the
So
board?
does everybody else feel on that?
On the sidewalk, I agree.
Yeah, I'm okay with one side.
Terry?
Yeah, turn up to the subdivision.
Jim, even though you have no say?
Opinions.
And I always thought that sidewalks on both sides of residential subdivision were overkill anyhow. A lot of communities are going to one side or allowing variances to go to one side.
Okay. So that was item number 1. Any thoughts on downspouts, swale lengths? Again, the swale lengths is more time, more contact time for the water to
You're
percolate
talking
into the
about the
ground.
catch basins in between the lots?
Yes, they were trying to run it a longer distance to get more time for recharge
Fine.
into the ground.
So how deep is the rock profile here?
It varies. I mean, it's 8-9 feet in locations. It's deeper in other spots. Obviously, as they're grading out the site, they're trying to fill to get a full basement in some areas, and that's why in the upper northeast corner, they're kind of filling in that corner to raise it up a little bit. Our code does not allow for blasting the basements, so they got to be on bedrock or whole ram if need be. You can blast for utilities, but some areas it's deeper. I think 8 to 9.
And I was going to mention to
It's
you,
kind of the shallowest that I saw.
back in the day, there were a number of subdivisions in town where they had to blast and or whole ram to get storm conductors in. So not exactly a very sustainable construction activity.
Right.
In the lower right corner's got your,
If Mark's group thinks that the soil saturation is not going to create long-term standing water like we've seen in some swales and backyards, and that the 3 lots or 400 feet is sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
we kind of like them in between. Just over time, as people put in fences, add in pools, it kind of changes the backyard profile. And if you kind of run too far between inlets,
Right.
as you add in fence and you put an in-ground pool and fill and grade and put a shed in, you kind of lose the definition of a swale. So to have, you don't want the catch basins to be too far. I understand, DEC's thoughts, concerns, and trying to provide a vegetated swale and perk in, but I mean, that's the, kind of the balance we're trying to strike is the long term. As people add sheds and other appurtenances of their backyard, the swale kind of gets less defined and doesn't convey water as well. Jim, thank you, Doug, for pulling up, that's kind of the rock profile. So I think I saw about 8 feet as being about the minimum, and then 10, 12, went up from there.
Do homeowners have the option for those that are on splash blocks to put in dry wells if
They could.
desire?
Yeah, I mean, they could.
There's no restrictions.
No, it'd be private. I mean, people have put in rain barrels on their property.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people have taken their downspouts off and gone to splash block. I know in older neighborhoods, the clay tiles, pipes around the house get plugged up, they no longer flow. So rather than ripping up everything, I've seen people just disconnect them and go to splash block on their own, and we don't go after people and say, hey, you have to. New development, we've tried to collect it and take it out, but I see, recently we've kind of backed off that in some of our more recent subdivision applications. We've gone back to splash block. And then the setback to the high water line. I don't know if the board has any. I know we just had issues in the past that, we had a pond and the house was 30 feet away, and then, we had storm events where the pond fills up as ponds do, and a lot of concerned calls from neighbors calling up saying, hey, the water's getting close to my house, and it's a pond, but, they've shown kind of generic, house locations and house pads and everything to the pond elevation. Their concern is, is it going to run into an issue if the house is a little bit bigger, or it's got a sunroom bump out
Deck, pool.
off the back, or something that there's a separation from the high water line.
But you're still, the high water line is the darker.
Yes, that vegetated area. I don't even know if it's, that's the pond, whether the high water is all the way to the top of that.
Not.
But there's actually berming in, there's berming in between. I'm not even into the light.
Hang on.
Yeah, right there. Those are actually landscape berms up above on those areas. So there's even some separation that's, they've
At
created
least
some,
get rapids in between them.
they've created some, so it's not just flat grade to it. You have a little bit of landscaping and some buffer to kind of separate those, backyards to the pond itself. So, we can.
I know it can get somewhat nerve-wracking, I guess, for a homeowner when they see the rain coming down, the pond raising, but
Pond does
Oh.
discharge.
I think we had any regulation before, so this is new for us to have an actual numeric limit to it. It's up to the board. If do you want to send a letter of support? We can say nothing, send a letter saying we're supportive of the sidewalks. The board has no opinion about the green infrastructure elements, and let the town board
let them make the decision.
make the decision, or as we do with the zoning board,
Wait for.
we can provide a letter of support, or however the board wants to handle it.
Thoughts, everybody else? Bob? Terry? Bill?
Whatever the rest of the board wants, no problem. If you want to ask for,
Let them make the decision.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so you want to send a letter in support of the sidewalk waiver?
Sure.
So we should take a vote on that, to send that letter, and then we'll just hold off on the green infrastructure, and then we'll just submit to the town board. If the town board comes back and asks for more information or
Stronger
opinion or
opinion,
something,
then
then
fine.
we'll come back to the board for that.
Okay.
Do a
Entertain
motion to approve the proposed sidewalk.
To send a letter.
Canower and
Send a
Bastion.
letter.
Second.
I'm sorry, Bastian seconded that?
Look at those little things you have in auctions or.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Flags.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings?
Aye.
Do you want to hit the landscaping quick?
Yeah, and then I don't know, we want to talk about board's thoughts on landscaping, the overall project. We want to talk about conservation easements, layout, what other thoughts. We plan on meeting with the applicant's engineer either later this week or first part of next week to kind of work through some technical issues, comments we had. We heard from the neighbors to the east. They had some stormwater concerns. We've tried to capture, I think currently about half the field, 50% of the field property comes their way. They've cut it down to maybe 5% or 10% comes their way. We're still working with them to do, possibly do some dry wells or something in that corner to collect additional water on this lower corner down here.
Southeast corner.
Yep. So that pipe discharges across the street, but really doesn't go anywhere across the way. So they've collected most of the vast majority, and that's why they're also collecting houses like 24 and on up, all the downspouts and everything else. So all the water that falls on their house, street side, will go to the street and then go to the pond and the infiltration basin. The backyard areas of those couple of lots would discharge to the back, which would run to a swale, discharge into the corner. And I know some of those neighbors on the east side, had some drainage concerns. So we're working with them. Is there a possibility to put some dry wells or something down in that corner? It's not too far off the road. It would be on town-owned property, so we could vector it out. The vector truck pop it. It's close to the road. Vector it out, but that may help them with some of the small volume storms. Just recharging back to the ground. Obviously larger storm events, you're going to have runoff.
You're talking about the sediment now?
Yeah, as you get leaves and stuff in there over time, they do have some maintenance to the dry wells and get some debris in it, but
And who maintains those?
it would be the town. All that land with these infiltration basins, the berm, the landscaping is going to be on town-owned property. One that
That's
puts in
the
a,
proposal, right?
that's the
That's
proposal.
what they're proposing.
Yes. That puts it under town control, as we've done with most subdivisions, that, that's under our control and maintenance. But it also gives us the opportunity, if the state ever does come up and want to modify that intersection, we own the property, we can transact whatever right-of-way is necessary to expand both the north side of Atlantic and then
What about
the
changing the curve?
east side of 5 Mile Line, as well as the curve.
Yeah.
The 286 corridor study does, I'm sure it's a long-term out, but modifying this curve here and then the curve further east of Baird Road, softening those curves in there. So if the town owns and maintains that piece of property, that gives some flexibility for the town.
Do we own, excuse me, Mark, do we own the, on the, was it northwest side of Atlantic and 5 Mile Lane? Do we own all that corner with all, when they built that new subdivision across the way
The
there?
sidewalk is pushed back on that side of Terrace Hill. You can see it's farther back from the road to
Yeah,
accommodate
'cause see how-
a turn lane on that side. And
See how
then
dead it all is up there? On the, we're on the corner there, on the left side, I mean,
Yeah, there.
right? Yeah,
Right
that
there.
grant built that whole track in there. I mean, for a long time, they couldn't, there's no
Yeah, all those
vegetation,
trees.
trees they put in were all dead.
yeah.
I don't know who was responsible for maintaining it, but,
Part of it was in the right-of-way, part of it's on private property.
yeah.
You can see the rest of the street kind of filled in pretty well with landscaping, and
Yeah.
something similar. This one's showing berming and landscaping along that.
Yeah, I just don't want us to make the same mistake like we did the last time for that one, because obviously nobody decided to take care of that. It took 2 years to do it, so hopefully on this other side, when we're going, we'll do a nice job with the
This corner would
landscape.
have a pond on it, and
Yeah.
with the landscaping and having pond close to the road is our preference now. We've had, other subdivisions, we put them in the back, out of the way in the corner, and then one in a storm event, it's hard to get to look at it and have a quick visual. Here you could drive by and say, okay, that pond's functioning fine, and drive on down to the next one. The second is, how do you get access? In some neighborhoods, Pennicott, we're looking at that one recently. We own a 10-foot strip to a pond that's acres and acres and acres, and how do you get back there to do any maintenance to it? How do you get machinery back there? If you've got to dig it out, you got to get trucks and other stuff. So I think having the pond closer to the corner gives visual assessment, make sure it's functioning, and also easier access for equipment if you've got to get in there to clean up the outlet structure or something's going on with it. They're showing to keep the existing tree that's out there. I know that was a comment of the Conservation Board, if I'm not mistaken.
Where they want it.
Or at least some of the neighbors, at least in the area, had asked about preserving that tree, so they're showing to keep that, and then adding a couple other trees in right at the corner.
How much water retention?
Yes. Retention there, the southern part is an infiltration basin, so it's dry majority of the time.
That part's dry.
That part's dry. It's on the back side of the road, so from the streetscape you have an offset area for expansion of the right-of-way, sidewalk, berm, and then on the back side of the berm is the retention area, or the infiltration area on that one. So that's all.
That's not retention though there.
No, that's infiltration.
That's retention.
That's retention.
How deep and
Filtration,
how?
and it connects to,
Take it out of hand quick.
that was stuck on this. There you go. That matches to here.
Whatever the engineer recommends. I just like to see some mature trees and landscaping on the frontage of both 5 Mile and Atlantic, more than we saw in the past.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Could you pull up along 5 Mile landscaping?
Thought that with Bruce today, was adding some additional landscape.
Up along this section. That gap that we see on 5 Mile where the road bends internally.
Yep.
And kind of lack of landscaping there. That's something that Bruce is looking at and will be part of his memo about
Bruce.
Suggestions for that area.
Yeah, what do we live? I mean, what is it? 15 feet from road to road? 20 feet?
I think that's Bruce brought up as well, is you may see headlights coming from an odd direction at you.
Yeah.
If you're coming up 5 Mile and kind of see the headlights, and people coming in and you're going to curl around the corner, it might be a little disconcerting to somebody to see something coming off to the side. So looking at and reading some pines or arborvitae's, sort of evergreen along that area, and to fill that in. We do have utilities in the area, so we'll have to, kind of place them judiciously, but at least to kind of help with that headlight.
What about aeration and that type of thing for the pond?
I mean, we, as the town, typically don't do it. We would look at it for functionality. We don't do aerators and all that to it if the private people wanted to do it, or through the special improvement district. That's something you could look at it to add it if those neighbors wanted it, or something would be assessed to their taxes to pay for it.
Yep.
As the town, we just make sure it's functional, it's meeting all the requirements for stormwater quality, quantity, aesthetics, that would be paid for by the individual neighborhood if they wanted something additional, aeration or filtering, something.
We always hear about people commenting about retention ponds getting nasty and disgusting, and I'm wondering if some type of aeration, whether it's a floating fountain or aerators would, floating fountain would look nice.
A lot of them depend on the size of the pond as well.
Yeah.
When you get small little
Absolutely.
pocket ponds, you don't get enough water to really
Right.
flush through them and keep them flowing, where you get a larger pond that helps to keep them a little fresher.
Well, the one gentleman out there on Sweets Corners, he had a window. He came to us for where he had his pond.
Chris Ocean?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a wind-powered aerator that just pumped a little oxygen into
So
it.
yeah,
and
that would be
bubbled it.
an idea.
Mhm.
What's the board's thoughts on the conservation areas?
Well, it seems like the town, sometimes they want it, sometimes they don't. I mean, it's another property they have to maintain.
I mean, I think staff is supportive of taking the area along the road. We would consider that conservation easement, that'd be a town-owned property, and I think,
How do we keep the yards from encroaching into that area, other than the monument? Posts.
we were just talking about that with Bruce again today, was, supplementing with some plantings along there as well to kind of delineate where the backyard is, whether, redwood, dogwood, something, have a post at the corner, same town-owned land, and then have some plantings along there that wouldn't be massive, but at least something, a visual
Right.
buffer to designate, so along that kind of
And common planning, so everybody knows.
common
that's-
plantings
that's where
of whatever all of the
Yeah.
plantings up to him. We did talk about that today, to have some plantings there to kind of delineate it as well. Because knowing that, that infiltration area over time, it's going to be kind of wetlandy at times, it's going to be dry at other times, but we're not going to maintain it accurate.
People
But at least
dumping
you'll
all
look,
their yard debris back there. and-
you'll look out at it, and at least you can kind of see there's a delineation between your property and what's town-owned land. But they are proposing, or we're proposing, some conservation easements, one over the middle area. There was some, thank you, Doug, an area they were kind of mounding up, whether that's excess topsoil, some other materials that would kind of break up the sight lines of the rear yards. The plantings on top of that are going to be new, so I don't know if there's really anything to conserve in that area. And then the other strip that Doug's highlighting is the back strip that abuts the neighbors
To the north.
to the north.
No.
And they had concerns about
Oh, they show you
buffering.
the cash story there.
And I think, staff is supportive of the developer leaving the trees in that hedgerow area, so
Mhm.
not denuding the area.
Yep.
But we do have some concerns about putting a permanent conservation easement over it. A lot of those are hedgerow trees.
Right.
The farmer had kind of just left them, they'd kind of
Right.
just grown up. I don't think there was anything in that, we walked it, in the fall. Yeah, I mean, it's green, and
We did
there's
review photos at previous meetings as well.
green, there's vegetation, and it does act as a buffer, but I don't know. There's
Leave
any-
it there, and then if somebody wants to do something with it down the road, it's
That's kind of where
kind of their call. right?
we were thinking, is if a homeowner wanted to take those out and then, plant some nicer trees back in there, or
Juniper or something.
do some additional plantings, wouldn't preclude them from taking it out, but, I think the developers avoided that in his design, and his drainage has kept it out of that, so it keeps that. But not something that would permanently prevent, the neighbors if, we have some, so we're just gonna scrub trees.
Yep.
What's the board's thoughts on those conservation easement areas?
If the town, if it works out well, you gotta maintain it, that's another piece of property.
I mean, that would be the owned area. I'm kind of talking about the strip to the north, is whether we want to see that in a conservation easement. Strip
I almost
along
say
there,
no.
and then the piece in the middle.
I like the idea of keeping the vegetation there
Yeah.
for privacy buffer,
Basically, trees to be preserved, more or less.
but I don't necessarily feel that it needs to be a conservation easement. That's my,
What's the advantage to the town for the strip to the north?
Again,
it wouldn't be owned by the town, it'd just be conservation easement.
the easement would just basically permanently restrict the neighbors from doing anything in that area. Some of that stuff is, again, they're trying to meet their minimum requirements for green infrastructure. There's other areas and stuff that they can do to meet that minimum. And other times we've done conservation easements if there's a nice stand of woods or a stream or something else that we're really trying to protect. I don't know if there's anything in that hedgerow that I would consider high-value plants. I mean, it's a nice buffer
No,
to the
but it's-
neighbors, and
right.
it's a buffer.
It's a good
It's a buffer
buffer.
to linden oaks and,
So if somebody wanted to replace it with a nicer buffer, conservation
tree.
easement
Tall tree,
would
yeah.
legally prevent them
Long
from
Lone
doing
oaks.
it.
So,
Yeah.
let's get in there. Too many
Thank you.
trees.
No.
Okay, we've talked about conservation easements, landscape areas.
Does everybody else feel, I mean, do you have a deal breaker opinion on that?
No. All in favor?
Board is good with the one entrance. We've gotten
County says.
stuff from the county, and they're happy
We've been
with
back and forth a few times, haven't we?
being as far north as possible. And we have a divided entrance that's making the fire marshal happy. And he's got a split entrance as an access to the neighborhood.
The DOT is gonna widen the road in the next 5 years.
We
We can't answer that.
We've contacted the
Or
state.
send a letter to that one.
Oh, I've already sent off emails to the state, contacted them for safety money. We have the support of the county DOT. We've gotten a letter, an email from Terry Rice. He's supporting us in that effort, so continue to pursue that with the state DOT is, have them put turn lanes in on Atlantic and we'll look at that intersection and make some necessary improvements. There is, it does exceed the statewide average for accidents in the area. We're aware of that, but based on the information we've got from the state and the county, 86 home lots, yeah, it's not going to make the intersection better, but that's, a drop in the bucket compared to the overall traffic that's going through the area right now. Should there be improvements to the intersection? Sure. The state doesn't have it on their radar right now, but I've been emailing them and contacting Kevin Bush, our regional director. We're meeting with the state, as we always do in the spring of this year, to highlight all issues, concerns we have around town. So we'll continue to push with him, and then I see we do have the county DOT backing us and pushing us on that. I know there is some opportunity for federal money out there for safety money, so I've kind of reached out to the state and said, is that applicable to this intersection? Can we get safety money to do some
Any
improvements?
replies?
They said they're looking at it. I didn't get a
Firm answer.
yes or no, but yeah, we'll pass it on to our people. We'll take a look at it and something we'll investigate. So at least I did get a reply.
That divided entrance, that piece in the middle is just concrete?
I think it's a mountable curb, and I think they show some.
Landscaping.
I think there were some shrubs on it.
Okay, so it does
Did they
have
send us a specific?
Yeah, we would
some
definitely
landscaping.
make sure that it's a mountable curb, so if an emergency vehicle needed to get in or
That was
out,
just the turning
they
template.
could go over it if you had to.
Yeah,
We can talk to Bruce about, what we want to
Put on
This
top
is
of it.
detailed.
put on top of it, or, you don't want any
Detail for sure.
trees or anything
very high.
high, one to block visibility, or two, if you do have to mount it, you don't want the trees to be an impediment in that area, but,
Right.
have some vegetation to spruce it up a little bit.
All right.
We've talked about traffic, entrance drainage. Anything else the board is looking for? Said we're meeting with the applicant's engineer to kind of go through some of our other technical comments and items later this week and next week. We're looking for PRC's responses to PRC comments back. As Zach said, we'll be reaching out to the school district to get a letter back from them, basically hopefully confirming that they've been able to accommodate these students, at least through a phased approach in the school district. They did send a letter initially saying they had some
Yeah, I remember
some
that.
initial questions, concerns with the new development. So we'll reach out to them with that.
Look for Bruce's
First time we
memo.
voted on.
We're looking for Bruce's comments on the plantings and what his feedback is on that.
And we'll,
Anything else the
Could
board?
could we look at lot one? Maybe it's just me. That piece, that little narrow piece, the upper right.
West side.
Well, that's the right of way, further back.
That piece in there?
Is that piece gonna be an issue?
I mean, looking at the grading plan, and that's one of our comments, they had a swale that kind of cuts through that lot that makes it a pretty short backyard. but just to the
Okay.
east of that is is the Victory Garden. So in talking with them, the Victory Garden has some ponding issues, drainage issues in their parking lot. We've made a comment to them, if we could slide that swale, to the common property line, that's something else we'll have to talk to the town board about. They would require some minor grading on town property, but that could be a benefit to the Victory Garden, cleaning up a little bit of the drainage stuff that they have, but also sliding that swale back to the rear of the property, which would, gain a bit more of a usable backyard on lot 1.
Yeah, I was thinking
Something
to
they can-
that piece to the west, it's only like scale-wise, I don't know, 25 foot wide.
It's not a,
Size of right away.
I know we've had those in other locations.
Okay.
We've taken a wider right-of-way in there. Ultimately, the homeowner's gonna mow up to the back edge of the gutter. Even on the plan, it shows
That's
it's
true.
right-of-way.
Yeah.
They'll gain a little bit of space. They
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do a lot with it, but by the time you add that and then
Shuffleboard or something.
have another little
Outdoor bowling alley.
side area, they could,
Yeah, I
the
guess
the
what
load
the-
of the gutter and
Yeah, the right of way would still be, a portion of it would be grass. Okay.
Other comments?
So I got 4 things for the tabling resolution right now, which is where we're going. Responses to the PRC memo that was issued on the 12th. Reaching out to the school district for written correspondence about what they said verbally with regards to the 86 homes and how they don't expect it to impact the school district. They can accommodate. A landscaping memo from the town landscaping consultant. And also issue a letter of support from the board to the town board for the sidewalk waiver request when that comes in, along with and the other waivers. We'll let the town board act on those separately with regards to the green infrastructure. Other than that, are there any other questions with what we talked about so far? I think landscaping, like Terry had mentioned, is a key issue to look at.
Yeah.
Conservation easements, we'll keep looking at that as staff, but we'll also have that meeting with the applicant later this week or next week to keep discussing any other options to that. If there's something out there that we're not aware of, or just the reasoning behind it again. And we'll come back with more of those answers for the board as a follow-up at the next meeting.
Yeah, you can table pending submission of additional information and review of that submitted information, and then at your March 10th meeting, see what we have, and
Can we entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Tidings and Bastion.
Thank you. Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian, Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Just looking at the sketch letter.
The sketch letter?
Yeah, the draft sketch letter. Oh, that's minimal. Alright, our second tabled application is the sketch plan for the Oak and Apple Ciderhouse. It was tabled after the public hearing in January so that we could collect all the comments from the board through the public hearing that was held, get those in a draft letter. That letter was sent out to the board in advance of this meeting. We're going to pull it up on the screen. Just if anyone has any corrections or additional comments that they'd like to add, we can add them to it here and entertain a vote to issue the letter after we're done looking at this. I think we have one comment or one item to add from council after talking to Pete about this application that we'd like to add. Pete, do you want to just go over that quickly?
Yeah, I think there's some issue about, with respect to the easement, and I think I would like to make sure that there's something in writing from the applicant, other than, so we have something other than whatever, maybe at the public hearing on this issue, So maybe ask them to provide the board with their analysis as to why the proposal is in compliance with the terms of the easement on the property. That way, there's a good explanation, it's in the record, it's, and, if it could be had before the hearing, that way people have a chance to see it and understand it and consider it before the hearing, I think that would be important.
And I think you also referenced the Ag and Markets law as well. and-
Yeah, I think one of the things I asked Mark before the meeting tonight about, I guess they're in the process of creating a
Yes.
website for this application.
Yep.
And I think that it's important, and you guys should look at this material as well, if you haven't already, and make sure that some of this stuff that, I think is very important to be up on the website for this. There's the guideline for review of local laws affecting farm operations from the Ag and Markets. It's kind of a good, the Ag and Markets law has a definition about what constitutes a farm operation, which is something that the easement itself refers to as being specifically permitted. And so with the Ag and Markets, if you go to the definition, it refers to these other provisions and get a lot of cross-references. And so they've kind of already done the homework in this guideline, which is a good place to start as far as what does it mean to have something be constitute a farm operation under the Ag and Markets law. So I think that's one thing that should be, be sure to be included in there.
That's a state law.
The Ag and Markets law, yes. But then this is well, I understand this to be a guideline from the,
From Ag and Markets.
from the, the Department of Ag and Markets, analyzing the statute, or, kind of doing a plain English summary of what they
Okay.
provide. Because, the definition of what's a farm operation means the land and on-farm building. You could read it, but it's a good explanation, it's in plain English.
We've pulled out sections of the law and it's included in the project file. It was included during the sketch plan, and I guess they've made application for our March public hearing as well. That same information's been passed on to that as well, from sections 301, 305, 308, with the full excerpt of the law, as well as these guidelines. We put those together in the project folder that the board will have a chance to look at before the public hearing.
That's right, because some of those other provisions, so what Zach just mentioned, deal with kind of I think it's like the right to farm provisions and, certain other, policies that are, that this easement is designed to further. So I think it's good to have, understanding of what that is in the context of this easement.
I know Zach's working with the website. Obviously, this has a lot of public interest. We're looking to, set up a site on our website to host these on there. We've passed them out to, concerned neighbors so far. We'll put it on our website as we get the information. I think hopefully the end of this week, beginning of next, we'll have that up and available for people to review.
Yeah, but I would ask, I think I would add something to the sketch plan letter about, having the applicant provide us with their analysis of, why they believe that, how they come to the conclusion that the proposed use complies with the easement. Because you also want to make sure that they understand all the provisions in the easement, because the easement itself has provisions, that deals with, I think there's a provision to prevent use as a banquet facility. I think I remember seeing that in there, so they need...
Limitations to just overall square footage.
Yeah, so it's important that they understand that and acknowledge that, and so that the public knows that, they understand that those provisions apply regardless of, whatever the Ag and Markets provisions provide, so
Right.
it's important to have that.
Is the board okay with adding a paragraph to that? We can take these notes and add it to the letter following this meeting.
Absolutely.
What about some of Paula's comments? Is it going to be used for a pub eventually? I mean, if they're going to get a liquor license to sell the hard cider, are they going to start selling beer and maybe hard liquor as well? And is it going to grow in scope?
I think those
to
are
where-
things to, the board obviously can ask and clarify those things. You can ask in the public hearing as well to clarify exactly what their intent and use is for the site. You know, it's something we can clarify with them. I know she had questions about access on Sweets Corners Road.
Right.
We can ask the applicant to look at the site distance. You know, my own personal, just driving Sweets Corners Road, it's a much hillier road with, you know, a lot of blind areas on it.
It's better access off the.
Yeah, I mean, we can ask them to provide site distance in that area just to, you know, have it for the record.
But if they do get a liquor license to sell their hard cider, does that open it up for anything?
I think you come back to the easement and you come back to,
Yeah.
you know, ag and markets laws
Okay.
is what they're governed by. They're an agricultural area, it's not a commercial district, so again, that adds limitations to it. But that's all stuff to,
This is, so, okay, I'm maybe speaking a little bit out of turn on this because I haven't looked at that specific issue, but, you know, there's certain aspects of what might be in the easement that if it's determined that the, you know, let's say that it's approved and it's, you know, under the confines of whatever the easement is and whatever requirements that this board imposes as conditions, and maybe it turns out that they start doing something that's maybe not permitted by the ag and markets law or starting to go a little bit sideways, well, then the easement provisions would still be able to be enforced if they're being violated, but and it would be up to the, you know, the town at that point to enforce its easement rights, which would, would still apply. So they still can't violate the easement, and this board, you know,
Well, I think that
can't let them
also-
violate it. So
you know, if this board moves ahead with an approval, would be conditions of approval, and I think we can
be subject to the easement requirements.
detail that out and require it into there, which then refers back to the easement and
You know, there's provision in the easement that talks about, as Zach mentioned it, the square footage, the parking lots, the parking
Parking
spaces,
ratio.
and for instance, that's your roadmap of any of the minimum conditions too that you would want to impose, I would say, if, you know, if that's the direction that the board goes.
anything else to add to the sketch letter. I said we can ask about that, and we can ask about, you know, their intent, and I think it goes back to council's initial requirement. How do they meet those standards? What is their intent? And some of that's in their letter of intent is what they're looking to do with the site, but you know,
Have
we
they
can ask
offered
for.
hours of operation?
They did in the public hearing. They shared it, but I think, again, that'd be something good to get on the record. I think they've said 12 to 8 weekdays and 12 to 9 weekends was what I had heard, but that'd be good to get on the record and then something for the board to discuss as
And
well.
Paula's suggestion that it be limited to 5:30 or 6 p.m. comes from
I think that's-
neighbor concerns?
I don't know. I'm sure. You know, she was asking about hours of operation. Typically, that's governed by the zoning district. The zoning district is agricultural. Agriculture can happen at any hour. You know, I think this board would want to put some restrictions on hours of selling and everything else. The hours that they can harvest apples and process apples. I mean, we don't govern farmers milking cows and harvesting crops and other things. So agricultural-based things, you know, fall outside those areas. Farmers often are up at 4 in the morning.
But if you're looking at
daybreak,
just open to the public hours,
and I think those are obviously considerations for the board is, you know, you get into this, you know, what are the hours of public operation?
but through this letter, we'll make sure that that's part of it, just get it in writing, what's their anticipated hours of operation. Board can review that through the public hearing process, through the preliminary final application request that they have. Then we can go through that then. At that time, that'll probably be part of their presentation when that time comes. So at least we can get that stuff in writing. But other than that,
Send the letter.
if we don't have any other issues besides what we need to amend from the draft, we can take a vote to issue the letter.
I'll make a motion to send the letter.
Second.
Ashton Canauer.
As amended,
As
As
amended.
Okay.
Thought I threw it in there.
just want to make sure.
Hetzke,
Aye.
Bastian,
Aye.
Canower,
Aye.
Tidings,
Aye.
Oh, I said with amendments, sorry. I'm getting there.
Okay. Heathwood, extension, 30-day extension?
Yep, Heathwood Assisted Living, it's an application that we approved back in October, further addition on the building. Part of that application, as the board may recall, is subdividing off the northern half of the land, basically, for financing reasons, as they are working with HUD right now through the refinancing process, or just what's used on the land and future development. Their plat map expired the approval resolution has a 90-day expiration period for the plat map subdivision, that part of it that was approved. Site plans preserved for a year, but the subdivision of the land has expired. They put in a letter, which was included in today's drop, just asking for that to begin a 90-day extension period for that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Are there any issues?
Yeah, unless somebody else has a problem with it, I think that was my application, so.
Delay was just waiting for HUD to come back, that they had the funding or the beds.
Somebody want to move it?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to
Second.
extend it.
Tidings, Canal.
Okay, Trustee
Aye.
Baskin?
Aye.
Canower? Tidings?
Alright,
Okay. So that's those items. The update then, we've just updated you on one of the March application items, which is Oak and Apple Ciderhouse. They'll be back again for the March public hearing. The other new item, public hearing preliminary final, is Bayview Landing on Empire Boulevard. It's the Dr. Hollick's property that we looked at 2013 and did the second sketch letter. Doug just pulled up the map quickly, just so everyone has an idea of what it is. We can't talk too much about it right now, but they are proposing 33 homes, townhomes, as they had in the sketch plan. Previous sketch plans did include a apartment unit in the LaSalle's Landing District. That's not on this application right now. We're just looking to develop within the R120 portion of the land for the townhomes. This would be a cluster 278 plan.
Also,
We are working on a
Yeah,
PRC
conventional.
memo currently. There is a conventional plan that staff has some concerns with that we are going to ask the applicant to revisit before it comes back to the board. And that's about
it's
it.
also dealing, Doug's highlighting the area up above.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually part of this property, this application as well as that piece at the end of Old Westfall. We've looked at before, and that's actually in the LaSalle's Landing District, and that's the area we're asking them to look at their conventional plan. They actually showed single-family homes on the end of that, which would make sense in Old Westfall. But under our code, single-family homes are not allowed in the LaSalle's Landing District. So they need to modify their sketch plan to show MOA or duplex, something additional up there, so.
So this one's back.
Their intent is
Again.
not to develop it.
Yep.
It's the third time.
Their intent is to, to take those units down below and, lease that they're offering at the sketch
So,
plan.
in fact, it actually
Doing
would
it.
potentially show more units.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the second or third or each third.
Interesting
iteration.
twist.
But they are asking
They're just-
for the 33 townhomes.
Right.
So, no matter how many units, or at least at this point, what they show up top, but we're having them revised to show at least more. Well, at least code compliant.
Yeah, something compliant with the code, and also, as we've said
Terrain.
before with conventional plans, something feasible.
Right.
Well, we know that that portion of land is quite hilly. Could you put a structure on every piece of it? No. It drops off
Right.
substantially on both north and south directions of it. So they gotta look at that with both, like Mark said, something compliant with the zoning as well as what's feasible with the way the land is now. So,
how's the water?
Okay.
How's the water down there?
I don't know, the bay's down there.
Under it.
It's somewhere. So those are the two
Alright.
preliminary final applications for public hearing, and that's our next
Be a
meeting. So
fun
we'll have
meeting.
Atlantic come back, or Windsor Ridge will be our table application as well, and we'll continue discussion on that. Try and get as many updates as we can for that project until that time.
Okay.
All right.
All right?
Alright.
Welcome back,
That's all we
everybody.
got.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
We don't need, we can just adjourn.
We will call this meeting adjourned.